wave my magic wand and say the magic words, a la peanut butter sandwiches.
Welcome back to Freakhouse Customs. Today I'd like to introduce you to the drag bike. Yeah, I just realized it's the most original name for it, but I guess until I get another drag bike, I can just keep calling this a drag bike. Obviously, I'm into salt flat racing, but I'm just into motorcycles. I love them all. The land speed racer right now is a Yamaha FJ1200. Mostly because that's what I could afford and I could find two of cheap. Now the Suzuki GS's have a special place in my heart because that's the bike that I learned how to build motorcycles on. The GS1000 was my first chopper, and then once I discovered the GS1100, they became my bread and butter. I have a GS1100 chopper. I have a completely stock bike that I set a production land speed record on. And my drag bike is a 1980 GS1100. I literally can close my eyes and see the electrical diagram for this bike. I know what you don't need, I know what you do need to make it run, and like I said, it's just my bike of choice. If I had to choose, I've always said if the motorcycle guys came down and said you can only build one bike for the rest of your life, for me it'd be the GS1100. So we've had this bike now for about a year. My first drag bike, I've raced street bikes exclusively up to this point. So I wanted to pick up a drag bike because I can only get to the salt once a year. And yeah, it takes me all year to build a bike. I need something to do to satisfy that race craving, and I figured this would be the best way to do it. As far as drag bikes go, she's pretty fast, but not drag bike fast. I've been the best of 1070s with her. I really just started figuring her out at the end of last season. My hope is to, well, my hope actually, my goal for this season was to get into the 10s, and then I have a whole pile of nitrous parts. I figured I'd just spray my way into the 9s. But she actually won a 10.7, which is more than I thought that she'd be able to go. So I'm thinking a couple of mods here and there might get me into the mid to low 10s, and then I'll spray her into the 9s. So speaking of that, I ended up picking up a set of GSX-R 1100 carbs. So these would have come on like an 80s, late 80s, early 90s Gixxer 1100. Pretty fast bike for the street at the time. And they are supposed to be much better than the stock carbs I have on her now. I should back up. This is a GS1100 drag bike with a completely stock GS1100 engine. My reasoning for that is because I'd never had a drag bike before. So I wanted to learn how to launch it, how to ride it, how to do all the drag bike things, and I figured it'd be safer with the stock engine. On the shelf over here, we have, the bike also came with a 1260cc motor. I'll be switching over to that one. I mean, honestly, I don't know if I even have to go that far anymore. This bike is so close to where I want to be, and where I want to be is 99999, that I might be able to just get by with a couple mods. And these carburetors should be good for a couple tenths, I'm thinking. So, that said, we're going to yank the carbs off this thing. Should be super simple. Fuel line, 4 screws holding the carb boots in, and then the throttle cable. And that should be pretty much it. So, a la peanut butter sandwiches. Battery's dead. We're gonna have to replace that in the near future. But for now, I got hooked to the truck. Got the fuel flowing. Let's start this puppy up, make sure everything works before we take her apart. Ignition on. Choke on. Sweet. Just good to know that it still works. Okay, so on to the carb swap. So we got the Gixxer carbs on there. Went on pretty easy. They slipped right in. The spacing is exactly the same. And honestly, the hardest part about it was getting the throttle cable to thread through. But once I figured it out, it was not a bad deal. So this time, let's get a little gas down in there. And we'll see. And I fully expect her to start leaking from somewhere at some point. But let's see what's going on here. Fuel on. Oh yeah, and then the only other difference is I had to tee off the fuel line because on the GS1100 there's only one fuel inlet. These carbs have two. And something I want to do for myself, I put some clear hose in there just so I can see that, I can see it right now, that the fuel is actually flowing. So, let's give this a shot. Alright, key on, choke on, and that was cool. Did not expect it to fire up. And it doesn't seem to be leaking. So that's cool too. Not sure if anyone caught the enormous fireball that just came out, so we'll have to look into that later. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I got myself some Gixxer carbs. Woohoo!